Welcome everybody to MMA Buds, and we are here for the best fights of the week. I am Dan from Oregon, and we got DC Howard over here on my right. DC,
What's
man,
up, folks?
what a weekend of MMA we had, right? Or I guess started before that.
Yeah, man, it's been a great week. I've been watching fights since Wednesday, pretty much. So yeah, let's bring them to the people. What's
Heck
up, folks?
yeah. Well, man, let's jump right into it. Our first clip here is going to be from Crimea Rush. And this happened, what was that, Wednesday is when these fights went
Wednesday,
down.
we got another early week show from Ukraine/Russia. And it had some good fights, man. Got us started off right.
Right. You can't go wrong with some MMA on Wednesday. We had The Ultimate Fighter started off. I would show you guys a clip of that, but the UFC doesn't want me to.
Don't want to mess with the big guys.
No, that heavyweight came away with a nice victory. And then moving right into Crimea Rush, Mary Pirev taps Jim Ehlers in the second round. Everyone go follow Joe Lasanda for this clip if you'd like to see it, but let us know what happened, DC.
Man, it was a really good fight. If you don't know Jim Ehlers, he was in the UFC for 3 fights. Had some really close fights, won one of them, lost 2, and that's a recipe for getting cut a lot of the time. But he took on Dagestan's Marif Pirev, who is 23-2 now. He's one of the best guys in Dagestan that hasn't been to the West yet. And Pirev stepped up and just dominated Ehlers. It was 2 rounds of wrestling, and then he choked him out. So keep that name in mind, Pirev. We might be seeing him in, PFL or something like that next year.
Heck yeah, and I was looking at this card, and it almost looked like some people that had left either Fight Nights Global and these other Russian promotions. We got other promotions popping up out of nowhere. Crimea Rush coming out big, and as people will find out later, GMC, the German promotion, doing some big things as well.
It up too, definitely. Yeah, filling in those gaps is some of the promotions, like you said, FNG and ACB haven't been putting on as many shows, so other promotions have talent available.
Oh my gosh, and then Carlo Caput KOs Renat Lafiov, I can't even pronounce that name, and seconds, and the referee has good takedown defense. And I remember seeing this clip as you keep watching this ref. The guy goes in for like a power double or something. The ref shrugs him off, and he gets the victory as well.
Keep watching in the background, and the ref is he's actually defending a takedown, and he uses a guillotine. And I got a tip from one of the Russian MMA fans on Twitter that Armin Anani and the ref, he actually had a couple fights in M1 Global. He lost them though, so this was probably his biggest win. The fact that he tapped out Renat Liatifov with a guillotine against the cage there.
It's not very often we see someone lose twice in the ring, but
we laugh. We feel bad for the fighter, but hey, it was a hell of a job from the ref.
Oh man, 100%. It's always nice to see a ref that's actually got skills in there as well. And then moving on, what else we got here? I think that's it for the Crimea Rush highlights. And we're going on to Inca FC28. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, well, as you see, just a brutal flying knee. That was just an awesome finish from Kevin Borjas, I think. Borjas, maybe. Inca FC, one of the promotions in Peru. We don't talk about them much, but when you see a highlight like that one, it makes the list. And hey, free stream, so kudos to that as well.
You can't go wrong with free streams. It definitely increases my viewership when it's free. I can tell you that much. And coming out of there, we go on to some PFL highlights that happened Thursday. Here is Muhammad Day Rees KOing and flattening Leroy Johnson with this vicious knee from the clinch here. And as we find out, Leroy Johnson had to undergo multiple surgeries after this.
Yeah.
So not only a vicious KO, but one where the man actually came out very injured. But Mode Reese, man, I know this is a showcase fight. I'm disappointed he's not in the playoffs.
He looked scary. I mean, obviously that's a pretty scary knockout. all best wishes with Leroy Johnson for sure. But yeah, Mo Doris looks like a great fighter. He used to fight at 205 also, which could be a potential for him next year if depending on what he's doing these days. And you never know. There might be some injuries before the 8-man playoffs, and Doris certainly put himself in a good position to step in if someone gets injured and they need a fill-in.
You make a great point there, man. What are the chances we're going to get through these playoffs with 0 injuries? It's very, very little.
Very unlikely.
Especially when you find out the fact that I did the other day, which is PFL going into the playoffs. These guys are going to have to fight twice in one day to make it to the finals.
Absolutely. It's going to be grueling.
Oh, man, it's going to be amazing. But our man Mo, or Muhammad, whatever you want to call him, is 14-0 as an amateur and a pro with 6 of his finishes in the first round. So definitely keep your eye out for Mo De Reese in the future.
Definitely.
Moving on to other PFL highlights that we got. We're now into tournament fights here. Or, sorry, not tournament. These were actual fights from the season. And here is Emiliano Sordi, or as they like to call him, He-Man, the Argentinian, rockets himself into like 4th place or something like that with this finish here in first round in 7 and under a minute is his KO so far.
Just an awesome KO, just found the money with that uppercut. And it's crazy to think that he was fighting on Contender Series, just a couple months ago. So Contender Series didn't work out, but Sordi got that fill-in spot in the PFL, and he could be fighting for $1 million now. So it's a crazy turn of events for him.
Right? You can only look up when there's $1 million on the horizon. And moving on, in the Sweden national team member in kickboxing and Muay Thai. Uh-oh, I lost that one. Where'd it go?
Oh, off the page.
Let's go back.
Yeah, this was quite a knockout from Sadibou C. I didn't really expect him to be super competitive in this PFL season. He kind of looked like one of the guys that didn't have some of the credentials of the other fighters, but boy, he proved me wrong on Thursday.
Holy smokes. Yeah, man, we got so many wonderful finishes on this card. I love what PFL's doing. I think they got the right format to get the job done, and we'll definitely see him back in the tournament coming soon. Or I keep calling it a tournament. I guess it's playoffs, but whatever we want to call it.
Yeah, PFL doesn't want you to call it a tournament for some reason, but looks like a tournament to me.
I totally agree.
I love tournaments.
They must be going for the American audience here, the regular season, the playoffs.
You got it.
They did some research.
Market research.
It seems to work.
Try to make it sound like college football or basketball or whatever. I don't know.
Right? There's not many games on Thursdays. Every once in a while you'll get a major conference, but really it's the smaller conferences that are out there playing on Thursday as far as NCAA goes. So why not get some PFL in your life? And
check out. Speaking of that, check out that knee right there from Alexander Becerra, Popo. He was a guy that also stepped in. This was his first fight in the tournament, and there he goes. Or in the regular season, first fight in the regular season. And there he goes to the playoffs with just a huge flying knee. And this is a guy who could have been fighting for the Bellator title a couple years back. He had a couple split decision losses, one to Mike Richmond. And just ended up in the minor leagues for a few years when, if a couple judges had seen things differently, he would have been fighting, Joe Warren for the belt or something, or, whoever held the belt at that time. But very good fighter, so he's one to watch, Alexander Becerra.
And man, one of many flying knee KOs that have graced us as of recently, and this one was brutal.
Yeah, a bunch of big ones in PFL this year. It's been they told them they can't use elbows, so everyone's going with knees instead.
Oh, and it's working out well for us fans. And man, I believe this man right here, Alexandre, is going to be taking on Andre Harrison in the first rounds of the playoffs. So the guy that's going to be potentially shooting in for some takedowns against the guy throwing flying knees. I like that matchup there. And they don't really make the matchups; they just ended up that way.
So does Bezerra. They told him he was fighting Harrison, who is of course undefeated and hasn't even come close to losing. And Bezerra celebrated, like he was literally celebrating in the cage after they told him. He's so happy he gets to fight a top ranked guy. Obviously, he's got the belief that he can do it.
That is awesome. I am 100% looking forward to that. That'll be October 5th, your featherweights and your heavyweights coming at you. And what else we got over here from PFL? Ooh, that might have been it from PFL. Nope, one more.
Oh yeah.
Bazagit Atayev stopped Sean O'Connell with his spinning back kick to the liver and punches. And we get the delayed reaction here from Sean O'Connell. But once his liver told him he was done, he goes down, he shows some heart. But ultimately, Atayev says, bro, I'm getting into the playoffs, and I'm going to take you out in the first. And he skyrockets above Sean O'Connell in the rankings. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, and Atayev said after the fight that he had stayed in the U.S. the whole time between his first PFL fight, which didn't go well at all. I mean, it did, but then he lost in round 3 after starting out pretty well. But he said that he stayed in America and training in America for a month.
Oh, hold up, DC. We got some crazy ringing going on. Can you hear that?
Looking really sharp after doing his whole training camp for this second fight in America. So, yeah, good stuff from the Dagestani, the 39-year-old.
Yes, yes. And you know what we're going to do? I think we should reconnect real quick. So why don't you hang up and call right back?
All right,
we'll see if we can get rid of that ringing in the background. That shit is getting crazy. Yes, you can come over, baby. The tea is ready, says Drunk Savage. Drunk Savage is wondering, some people in the chat telling me they're not getting notified when we're going live. That is some unfortunate stuff over there. Okay, now we're trying to get reconnected with our man, DC Howard. Can you hear me, DC?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. The ringing is gone.
The ringing is gone. It was, yeah. That's what happens. You try to call from one side of Oregon to the other, and it just, the whole world goes crazy, apparently.
Let's get you back on the screen.
All right.
Boom, there we go. We're looking good. Fantastic. Boom, so I think that's going to do it for our PFL recap. So jumping in after Thursday into Friday, and in the morning we had Fight Nights Global 88, and why don't you just tell the people what happened here, man? This was from Kazakhstan is where they decided to go.
Yeah, and Kazakhstan has a little bit of a reputation as being a place where decisions can be sketchy, and that definitely happened here. It was mostly a local Kazakhstan card, and then Fight Nights Global had a flyweight title fight at the top of the card, and Tagir Ulanbekov, their undefeated defending champion, pretty much threw the Kazakhstan hometown guy Zalgis Zamagulov around the cage for 5 rounds. It was not a close fight, not the kind of fight where you could figure out any way to score it for Zamagulov, but that's just what the local Kazakhstani judges did. And Habib's dad, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, who was the coach for Tagir Ulanbekov, got in the cage and looked like he was trying to start a riot after the fight. He was pretty he was pretty mad. With good reason. It was one of the worst hometown decisions of the year for sure. But we're taking fights in Kazakhstan, I guess.
Oh my gosh. And that's unfortunate to see over there, man. But Abdulnap coming in, being the father to MMA that we need, man. Telling everyone, this isn't right, brother.
Yeah, he had no fear. He stood right in front of, the crowd was really happy with the decision, and they got irate once he started dressing down the judges. But, what are you going to do? As long as local governments are in charge of MMA decisions, this kind of stuff will happen.
Right, and then someone's got footage of this Combate Contender Series Brazil that's going on, and Marina Rodriguez with that 100-hit combo, it says, was like a video game. Marina Oliveira just couldn't take that elbow.
Yeah. Maria's a pretty good fighter. If you watch Ryzen, you saw her fight in the atomweight tournament, their atomweight Grand Prix, and get to the semifinals. But boy, this Marina Rodriguez, she's undefeated, and she obviously has some finishing power, which we don't always see in the women's strawweight ranks. So very intriguing, very intriguing. And she'll be fighting. I believe she's going to be fighting Ronda Marcos in her UFC debut. So that's going to be quite a huge step up. She'll be right in the top 10 right away if she wins that one.
So is that one of those fights that just got announced for Sao Paulo?
Yep. There were the 3 fights that were announced. There was that one. There was Mayra Bueno Silva, who was a winner in the first week, is going to be taking on Julian Robertson. And then also Augusto Sakai, who had a big finish in week 1 of Contender Series Brazil, is going to be taking on Chase Sherman. So pretty winnable fight there.
Right, they're sending Sherman out there, a man that was once like the Twitter OG. They're just sacrificing everyone now. They're like, bro, you ain't that great. Well, go fight all these guys.
Popularity is an interesting thing in MMA. It gets you opportunities, but it doesn't win you fights.
100% well said. And jumping from that on Friday right into GMC15. Maybe I'm a little out of order here. I'm not sure. It's smooth sailing for Mandy Boehm, 5-0 in GMC. Tell us about this for all of us that didn't catch it.
Yeah, Mandy Boehm is she's a German regional fighter. She's now 5-0. As you can see, she's got some pretty nice offense in the clinch, good elbows, just good punches throughout the fight. She's definitely one of the European women's MMA fighters to watch out for. And kind of a funny note about this fight, this was at least the 4th time she had been scheduled to fight this woman, Lily Penjerico, that she knocked out in about 45 seconds. So they scheduled it 4 or 5 times, and then when it finally happened, it was a nice, quick fight for Mandy.
Very nicely done by the ladies over here. And let's go back. Oh, moving on GMC. What else did we have? Oh, it looks like I pulled that one up twice. We'll close that down.
It was an interesting show because it was, as far as I understand, the first time that MMA was broadcast on major free television in Germany.
Really?
One of the fights that you might not have a highlight for, I actually can't see the screen at the moment, but is Stefan Puetz, who is the former M1 light heavyweight champ. And he took the GMC light heavyweight belt in a pretty grueling 25-minute fight. I saw some German media that was excited about the fact that he did it with wrestling, since that showed their national TV crowd that you could be a world-class fighter without, blood and, all that stuff that us fans like. But that was kind of an interesting perspective to see, since in Germany they're still a lot of people are still shaky on MMA as a sport.
Right, yes, Stefan Puetz, the man who had once beat Marcin Tybura in a super fight between the 205 and the heavyweights over there. I think that was FNG or M1, one of the two. And the super fight winner kind of went on to skid since then, but now he goes back to his hometown and, like you said, gets it done with the unanimous decision. And that, I got some sort of clip for that one. But
I clipped a little bit of him wrestling just so I'd have some video evidence. It wasn't a fight with a lot of highlights, but just the fact that it was a high-level fight in Germany, the distribution, it's good to see that the sport's starting to catch on there. It's really progressed in the last couple of years.
Right, and oh my gosh, I'm trying to show this clip here of Khurshid Kakarov.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
After a sustained beating at hands, knees, elbows of Kakarov, This seemed like a good place to stop it, but nah, the ref wanted more, is what Kaposa says, and I had to retweet this and say finish him, because this got crazy. Luckily, Kaposa showed us the minute and a half that happened before this, because it was one of the worst reffings I've seen, man. This guy wanted him to die in there. I thought it was, oh, who did it? Someone said on, was it you who gave it a 9 out of 10 on the Mario Yamasaki scale?
That was me. That was me. Yeah. Which got a retweet from the fake Mario Yamasaki. So I mean, it must have been a good tweet. No, it was a brutal. It was brutal. It was a really bad job by referee Marco Brewerson, who I saw Mark Goddard roasting him on Twitter. So some folks from the refereeing community were not very happy with this one either. And bizarrely, the finish saw the guy get hit with punches, elbows, just everything. And then it was a bunch of clear 12-6 elbows that he finally stopped it for. Weren't even legal shots. So just a really bizarre refereeing job. That obviously wasn't the highlight of the card from the German MMA perspective.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Got a lot of people's attention now.
This was the first clip that went around from GMC. No one even knew where it was from. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Definitely out there in Germany, though. And let's check out. Oh, yep, I think that was your tweet giving it the 9 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah, look at those John Jones elbows. Bones is proud.
I think, yeah, you show those elbows, actually. So let's see if we can get that tweet right back up real quick. And then the GMC welterweight champion, Kerman Ingazet, 14 and something. 14-6 made Talabud wobble and topple. And this was a great stanky leg for him
really
that he put down right here.
He did a heck of a dance in place. Yeah, and that was one of those fights. It was like Thibault Larcher he was getting hit with bombs from the first minute. I was pretty surprised he made it to the second round. But another fighter to watch from Germany, Karim Engazak, I think. But like you said, 14-6, but he's won 11 of his last 12. So he's a guy that started in MMA way too early, and he's obviously getting the hang of it. Obviously got some power in his fists.
Man, yeah, and then
That's
let's go
knockout from the show.
Let's go back to that last one. Where's it at? Dang it. It's not going to be very nice to us. Oh, well. The elbows are vicious. I'll be sure to retweet it after this so you guys can see what actually ended this fight here. And then on to the last one with the Stefan Poots here. Here's some of his wrestling for everyone to see.
Yeah, proof that it happened.
Yeah, and that's
about it.
A grueling 25-minute occasion, man. And if anyone ever listens to Chael Sonnen, he says that's too much, man. People shouldn't be out there fighting for 25 minutes. That's just a lot to ask of a guy. What do you think?
I mean, watching like Demetrius Johnson fights, that could go 8 or 9 rounds and I'd be all right. Maybe they should do it by weight, never have the big guys go more than 3 rounds. Have all the flyweight contenders go 5 because they never finish each other in 3. So yeah, I don't know. I actually wouldn't mind seeing more 5-round fights against the real elite guys. But on the regional scene, I would be okay with never seeing 5-round fights, just because you happen to be fighting for a regional belt. I mean, make it 15 minutes, just like a UFC prelims fight.
100%. And I think that does it for GMC. And that brings us along to the first card of Saturday on Fight Pass, which was Cage Warriors 96. And before that, even though, you got to follow them on Facebook. Sports Bible is the people that put out the prelims. And this amateur fight over here, this guy improves. Wait, what's this say? Kyle Johnson says, former Cage Warriors Academy champ Liam Gintons, 3-0, ignites the prelims, swarming Kevin Cordero Lopez with a first-round TKO. The Sandgrounders amateur and pro record is 14-2 now. He rides a 7-fight win streak and has finished all pro bouts by first-round KO.
That's the way to get started.
Right? It's always nice to see some pro prelims, especially for free on TV. Just
Yeah,
gotta sign up for Facebook for that.
about that, definitely. And they were really good ones. All four of the prelims were finishes in the first half of the fight, so it was some old school ACB stuff going on.
Nice. And so let's jump into this next one then. That was on the prelims. Powerful Maldo Babel, Kyle Johnson. Everyone give him a follow. And he says Francis Mehdi Ben Lakhdara nabs his first career finish, stopping Anthony O'Connor with punches in the first. And this was again on the Sports Bible portion of the card.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Very accurate. Yeah.
Heck yes. And jumping up with the next tweet here. Sam Creasy dominates Connor Hignett on the mat, a recent Cage Warriors title challenger. Has finished 9 of his 10 wins, 8 in the first round.
Yeah. That's the way to keep your name in the boss's head, right?
Heck yeah.
Get another title shot. Yeah, Creasy is a good fighter. That was a good fight. Definitely a showcase match for him, and he did what he should.
Man, I guess the only bad thing to take away from this is that all those fights finished so fast that we had to have an intermission before the fight pass started.
I know it was like the rise in intermission, except in Cage Warriors.
Yes, and
but it's
I don't hate on that.
On the other hand, would you rather have that, or would you rather have one fight per half hour like we get in UFC? We would have been just sitting there bored to tears, probably forgetting that the Cage Warriors prelims were on. So I think it kind of makes sense for a free prelim stream like this. Just keep them rolling.
And we'll have to wait for my slow computer here. Elliot Jenkins isn't happy with the stoppage, but the upset stands. Germany's Momad Favor 5-2 finished the Liverpoolian in a second round with a fury of mounted strikes, securing the win at this Cage Warriors debut. And isn't happy with the stoppage. That dude was pretty curled up there. I don't know.
What do you want the ref to do? And I guess, us fans will watch and we'll say, the ref should have stopped it. Why didn't the corner throw the towel in? That kind of gives you a clue. He probably wanted his fighter to come back so bad that he's, believing in him a little too much. I'm sure that happens a lot when you have a personal stake in a fight like that. But yeah, not a bad stoppage at all.
No, I guess he wanted that treatment from the GMC earlier. He's like, oh man, I want a minute of sustained beating before you stop this.
Well, I think the losing fighter can be happy that didn't happen in retrospect, because yeah.
Oh man, and then now I believe we're jumping into the Fight Pass portion of Cage Warriors here, and Nicholas Dalby snaps a 4-fight winningless skid. I believe that went all the way back to his Darren Till fight, choking out Roberto Allegretti, the Italian, in a second after dropping him with a head kick. You have to feel good for the locomotive, says Kyle Johnson, victorious for the first time since 2015 in his UFC debut. Holy smokes.
It's been a while for Dalby. He had really tough fights there. Like you said, Darren Till. Even his first fight back in Cage Warriors, he ended up matched up with Carlo Pedersoli, who's 1-0 in the UFC now. If not 2-0. He's at least 1-0 in the UFC now. So Dalby's been getting tough fights. This one was not, relatively speaking. It was a guy who was undefeated, 38 years old, just, hasn't broken into the world rankings, so, somewhere outside, like, the top 600. But, hey, good head kick, man, and hopefully Dalby will be able to, get it going against good fighters, because like we saw in that Till fight, he can hang with really good guys.
You're totally right there. And go back and watch that on Fight Pass to see who you truly think won that. Should have been a draw. Should Till have won? Should Dalby have won? Let me know. But I'm a little excited because here is one man from Denmark who got the job done. 2 Liverpoolians went down on this one. I think No, we'll get to that in a second. Let's work our way up the card.
Yeah, no spoilers, man. Come on.
Right. Oh yeah, we should have gave you a spoiler alert on that Contender Series Brazil thing. I think that's one of the only things, my gripes at the UFC recently, man, they seem to never go with the, what's it called, the tape delay type thing. That should have been on Fight Pass since week 1. I don't know when it's going to be up there, probably 5 or 6 weeks down the road. What a crappy deal they got with Global, though. This should be live for us, and let them show it to the Brazilians wherever they want, man.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of us would be watching. I mean, without accessing Combate Brazil.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot easier if they just put it on Fight Pass for us. But international broadcast deals screwing over fans for forever.
Man. God dang it. And then jumping in, though, Jack Grant, 15-4, makes his case for a lightweight title shot, overwhelming Alexei Mantakiev with the first-round punches and elbows. He rides a 6-fight win streak and has finished 14 of his 15 victories. Wow, 13 in the first round and 8 by knockout. Thank you for all those stats, Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle, he's like a recap machine right in his tweets. That guy, good old Maldonado.
Yes, sir.
Jack Grant looked awesome, and I'd be happy to watch him fight for the Cage Warriors title next. Certainly has earned it.
So Jack Grant versus the winner of the main event. We're almost there. Just hold on to your horses.
Who could it be?
But jumping into the co-main event, unfortunate circumstances here when the middleweight champion comes in overweight. And not only does the promotion rip away his chances at winning the belt after that, and the fight from him. It was a trifecta of a bad day for that man. And Jonas Billenstein takes on a welterweight that steps in on short notice, Mick Stanton, to come up there. And he walks away with the first round rear naked choke here. And what does it say? The vet rides a 6-fight unbeaten streak and has finished 15 of his 20 victories, 10 in the first round. DC, your thoughts?
Well, it was a pretty big mismatch. As you noted, it was number 50 in the world in the Fight Matrix rankings against a guy who is not even in the top 100 in the UK rankings at Tapology. So, it was kind of nice of Bilstein to just take the thing down and get the choke. Honestly, he probably could have beat the guy up pretty badly. I don't know the circumstances around Lee Chadwick. Exactly what went down with the promotion. But hey, Bilstein's a great fighter. Hopefully they'll get him a good challenge. I'm sure they'll get him a better challenge next time.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, we didn't see the champion in there. We got a new middleweight champion for the promotion, though. And Bilstein, a German as well, correct?
Yeah, it was a great day for Germany. Not only did they have their first national TV show at GMC15, they got a Cage Warriors middleweight champion in Jonas Bilstein.
Heck yeah. Cage Warriors very proud about how international their card was. How many...
They better be, because all those international guys whooped on all the Brits.
Right.
Not all of them. Grant saved the day.
Spoiler alert, Soren Bach quills the Liverpoolian faithful. What is it? Pillaging Paddy Pimblett en route to a decision win, and Cage Warriors strap a deep rear naked choke from Paddy. Nearly finished it in the first, but the true Viking roared back with relentless pressure and a stellar top game over at Cage Warriors 96. And if you guys missed it, Paddy nearly finishes it in round number 1. 10-8 round, Soren Bach. So close with that rear naked choke. And as you listen to the announcement, man, Dan Hardy at the end, he just couldn't believe it. He had to give him like pointers. He's like, this is what you need to do. You almost had it. He was so... they were so bummed out there in Liverpool because Soren Bach got it done. DC, what did you think?
Yeah, that Pimblett choke was so close. It was, right under the neck, and you could tell that he was just, killing himself trying to finish the thing. And, and then his cardio went in rounds 3, 4, and 5. I thought, if Paddy obviously hindsight is 2020, but he might have been able to still win that fight against Back if he hadn't gone so crazy looking for the finish in round one. But it was a good decision. We've seen some sort of dodgy stuff with Paddy Pimblett in Liverpool, like against Juliana Rosa, but this was a legit decision. Back weathered the storm and just came back and whooped him for the last 3 rounds. To the point that there was no way a judge could give Pimblett rounds 3, 4, or 5. Like, just no way.
The announcers were calling for a draw. They're like, what do you think? Could it possibly be a draw? I was like, what the heck are they talking about?
I know. And from watching some shady stuff in boxing, it got me thinking, uh-oh, do they know something we don't? Seeing what Brad Wharton, commented after the fight, he was saying that they thought it was 10-8 Paddy in round 1, and he thought Paddy might have won round 2, which, I think it was plausible. And, if you give Paddy 10-8 in round 1, and then all the rest are 10-9s, it could have been a draw. So I kind of get where they're coming from, but they're being really optimistic that the judges would bail Paddy out, because, most of the time most judges, that was going to be a Soren Back victory.
Oh my gosh, Soren Bach, his overhand right was just money all night long. It seemed like Paddy likes to back up with his head first, not with his feet first, and that gets him into trouble, man. He's got to work on tucking his chin and that head movement, but he's what Paddy is, man. He's gonna come in with crazy jiu-jitsu. He almost got it done for the Liverpool crowd, so you can't hate the guy.
And the thing was, he looked pretty good striking in round 2. Until the end of the round when he gassed out. It was like he had about 9 minutes in the gas tank. His striking did look better. Sharper, he was timing it pretty well. And then as soon as Back tagged him on the feet, hit a bunch of knees in the clinch in round 2, and that was it for Paddy. He kept trying, but yeah, great fight from Back, and he's 12-1. Paddy is one of the best wins on the regional circuit, so don't be surprised at all if we see him in the UFC soon.
Oh, and I saw someone mention in round number 1, and Soren Bach was talking about this too. He's saying, I wasn't going to tap to that. And that dude was just praying for Valhalla. He wanted that sweet, beautiful death. Paddy wouldn't give it to him. He wasn't going to tap. And the next thing you know, he's like, all right, I'm going to whip your ass for 20 minutes, boy.
Oh, and I wish I could think of the name right now, but in one of Soren Bach's previous Cage Warriors fights, he was in an early choke that was super deep. I think it was a guillotine choke. It looked like it might be finished, and came back and finished it. So this guy might be like old Brian Ebersol, the guy that's like, here, choke me, gas out your arm because you're never going to finish it. Maybe that's Soren Bach's gimmick. We'll see if that holds up.
Oh, man, but, okay, so here's your other man from Denmark getting it done. So, yeah, I'm high on the Locomotive because he got a victory, but I just thought it had storylines written all over it, man. 2 men from Denmark. I say let's take the Cage Warriors over there. Let's have the lightweight championship, and like you said, man, maybe that man gets the title shot.
Yeah, Grant versus Back. If Back doesn't go to the UFC, great fight, a couple of sluggers, that's a good old Just Bleed fight for the Cage Warriors title.
Oh, and you brought up a great topic there. Soren, during the interview, says, I'm going to take a 14-day vacation, and I ain't answering no phone calls for anyone except for Dana White. I was like, oh, shit.
That's a man who knows what he wants.
Yo, talk about a money call-out. He didn't have to call out a person. He said, "Bo, I'm going on vacation. Dana White, give me a call." Or everyone else, go fuck yourself.
Dana White, get me on that card.
Yes. Okay, so moving on to the Invicta recap here. MMA
the main
Buds.
event of the weekend.
I'm Dan from Oregon. That's DC Howard. Give him a follow at FightFan_DC. Check out all his work on MMA-today.com. And we jump into Invicta FC31 and trust the Guy Metzger prodigy to think she's Mark Coleman and Invicta31. And this is the first fight of the night. Audrey is out there. 2 featherweights going at it, 145s. And she threw a blatant headbutt, bro. The ref had to come in and stop. And did they take a point away from her?
Oh yeah, and it ended up making the difference too. She would have won the fight 29-28, and it ended up turning into a draw. Which is funny because just about everyone I saw scoring the fight on Twitter, just about everyone in the media had it for Salazar, who was the one who got headbutted. So, yeah, that was a little messy fight. It was pretty funny. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I saw a headbutt that blatant. In an MMA fight. We see grazing headbutts, kind of incidental ones once in a while, but that was something special.
Oh man, I loved it. I was like, yes. I'm a sicko who loves the international rules though.
The street, right?
Yup, 100%. And so that had to make a list. You go heads up headbutting someone, you're gonna get on the list over here. Okay, so next up, via always the powerful Kyle Johnson, Maldo Babel, give him a follow. The youngest fighter ever to win in Invicta, Kay Hansen, 3-1, adds another with a 3rd round TKO of Helen Peralta. The 19-year-old eroded her opponent with constant clinches and takedowns. She has finished each of her pro victories. Invicta FC31 here. And this girl, since day one, she's had 4 fights, all in Invicta. Lost her last one to Bro Sanchez, Killer B. Walker, and but now comes back and gets the victory. And look at her in like those All-American get-up right
there. Did the trick.
Right.
So a lot of grappling from her, and then it was interesting. It was like very tactical, a lot of grappling, not much damage, and then just really turned it on in round 3. So yeah, systematic erosion, as Maldo Babo put it.
Man, well put. And then jumping up the card, a lot of it was very exciting, minus the first 3 that went like the full 15 minutes that it was supposed to. Oh, we lost DC. What happened to Skype? Skype's got to reload itself. Okay. We'll get DC back in a second, but here it is. Mallory Martin nabs her 3rd consecutive win. Her 3rd consecutive win and finish, dropping numerous elbows on Ashley Nichols in 3rd round. A Team Zingano and Tiger Muay Thai rep. The Coloradoan amateur and pro record stands at 10-3, and we got DC Howard back. What did you think of the Cat Zingano prodigy out here and these vicious elbows?
That was the 2nd straight fight that she was screaming at her opponent to quit while she was finishing it off. So yeah, that's a level of meanness that you don't see in the cage very much. Like very, very interesting prospect. I'm sure her fights are going to be fun.
Did she pull the Habib and was telling her opponent to quit?
Yeah, she's done it twice in a row now.
Wow.
Yeah, real attitude in the cage, real attitude after the fight, like screaming into the microphone. So hey, she might get some fans behind her, maybe that's the kind of genuine attitude people like.
Man, I liked it. Both of these ladies were 3-2 hopping into this. Both of them looked like they had nice experience, though. And Ashley Nichols, I just noted, looking at her Tapology, she had the headdress thing that the Muay Thai people use. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to have to look out for, all 8 limbs of hers. She was striking pretty good. But, yeah, freaking, it looked like Mallory Martin saw that shit coming. I don't know how long she's been on a Tiger Muay Thai. She looks like she's got good wrestling out of Team Zingano, especially that top game there. And wow, I like that combo. I like some striking and wrestling.
She was really impressive, and it's always great to see really good finishes. Sometimes in higher level women's MMA we don't see that many, but 4 finishes in Invicta, and really good fights in the ones that did go 15 minutes.
Man, that was glorious stuff there. So good. UFC Fight Pass had to go post it everywhere. Or whoever it was, Invicta Fight Pass, they're like, yes,
They're like, yeah, Mallory Martin. Here's our charismatic star. Just keep knocking people out.
Heck yeah, man, and all of the personality over at Invicta. Everyone's got different get-ups, different colors, and what's her name had the kickboxing things on, and she was losing her little tassels everywhere. Pearl Gonzalez. And let's...
Yeah, it's like, maybe it's a good idea to not make everyone wear the same uniform. I mean, we're here to watch personalities. I mean, that's... And your walkout and your appearance is like 90% of what you're presenting if you're not, you know, the kind of fan who looks up interviews, right? Most people just see the walkout. Yeah. So it's awesome. Really makes fighters stand out.
Yes, and very minimal commercials over there on Fight Pass. We had 8 fights. It did take 4 hours, just about, but a title fight and all of that had to occur. But let's jump into this Pearl Gonzalez breakdown by Maldo Balbo on Twitter. Low-key, Pearl Gonzalez is making a case for comeback fighter of the year. She burned out the UFC against tough competition, but is now 3-0 in 2018 with Invicta. She showed serious improvement too, similar to what Angela Hill accomplished in 2016. And you can't put it much better than that, man. Angela Hill really improved, and the same that we're seeing here by Pearl Gonzalez.
Absolutely, and she was someone who got into the UFC really early in her career, having fought not great competition before the UFC. Then, you know, she gets matched with Cynthia Calvillo and Poliana Botelho, just super tough fighters. And yeah, we've seen that she's a fighter who's still getting a lot better. She just looked great against Diane Firmino. Got caught in a couple dangerous situations and fought out of them. Other than that, her wrestling was great, and her striking's light years better. And yeah, I think the assessment or the analogy with Angela Hill is a pretty good one. You know, I think we'll probably see Pearl back in UFC pretty soon, as long as she doesn't get derailed, you know, by someone else great. And Invicta does have a couple of great fighters under contract.
Yeah, she's looking great there out at flyweight, and the flyweight division's wide open. It's one of my the divisions I look forward to the most, because you don't know what's going on, who's really at the top. Jessica Ai's up there. She's taking on Serjara Eubanks now. That's like a #1 contenders fight that we got in the midst. I'm excited for what's happening there.
And it's interesting, like a fighter like Ai, who is so close to beating, you know, top 10 fighters at 135. And, you know, that 10-pound difference, you know, seems to be playing a big role for her. So yeah, I agree with you, man. It's been interesting to see like the fighters coming up from 115 and down from 135, and how they're all fitting in at 125.
Yes. And then on to the main event of the night, Verona versus Jananisa.
Verona Sandaroba against Janisa Morangine.
Boom, there you go. DC Howard with the powerful translations for us.
Verna likes to call herself the Brazilian Damian Maia. She likes to call herself the female Damian Maia. Yeah, she had a really, really dominating performance against Morandine, who's had some trouble on the mat in the past, you know, against really good opponents. Verna really, really took it to her. Just an awesome performance from Verna. I think she might be the best outside the UFC. I'm pretty sure she'll be top 10 easy once UFC does decide to pick up Verna Jandaroba.
Totally agree. And Kyle says she defends her strap for the first time with the second round arm triangle on Janisa, the self-proclaimed female Damian Maia, the female backpack. I love it. If you're gonna steer right into that, that's pretty sweet. Finished 11 of 14 victories, each by submission. Holy smokes! I just saw a stat today. Whoever posted it, she's got more submissions than Rose has fights, is what someone posted.
I don't remember, but yep, she's obviously Rose. Rose is a bad comparison just because Rose, you know, basically debuted in the big leagues.
Yeah.
But as far as stats go, it's eye catching, and Verna's for real, you know. That'd be interesting. And how many real dedicated jiu-jitsu players do we have at 115? I mean, there's Tatiana Suarez, who's of course more of a wrestler. That'd be a fascinating matchup for Jandiroba.
Yes.
But yeah, those two look like they could cause some real problems in the next 2 years.
You threw that out. I would love to see that. The two undefeated chicks, strawweight, got to go at it, because Tatiana is huge for that division, I think. And this girl looks like a true test for somebody. And you want to take her down? Let's see how she looks off her back.
Yeah, who knows? We haven't seen it yet. Of course, I bet all the strikers in the 10 would love to see that fight too. Kill one of them off for the time being.
What a fantastic Invicta31 card. Invicta32, though, doing the thing that they never do, which is leaving Missouri, leaving the Scottish Rite Temple, headed to Shawnee, Oklahoma, or someplace like that.
Yeah, I don't know what Oklahoma does to get all these fights, man, between Bellator and this in Invicta. But hey, whatever. Take the show on the road.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll see some of the fighters from, Texas area that haven't had a chance to, make it to Invicta. It'll be a little easier for them to make the drive, see some of the southern women's MMA talent.
That will be cool. And what do we got? We got 2 funny clips for you guys before we get out of here, and these KOs got to make the list. And this is shoplifting bully gets wrecked over here via GIFs. ZP. They've changed his account many a times. Twitter taking him out.
Zombie Prophet it turned out to be a really good name for him. The poor guy.
And boom, this guy hassling like 5 workers is stealing shit, and some bystander going by is like, "Yo, bro, I'll do the right thing," and he's out there.
I see those things, and it always amazes me that people are. It always amazes me that people are so happy to just like stand next to somebody who's being aggressive like that.
Right. It's amazing to see.
I'm looking more like the guy in the second video. Not as good, but moving away. Those people.
Shoplifting bully gets wrecked. Follow Zombie Prophet. He is a must follow. And here's a new follow of mine, man. Editing King. It's a boxing channel. I don't know how I came across this, but this is labeled David versus Goliath with the snooze face. And here we go. Slip the punch, land the right, kaboom. And he's completely
Moral of the
asleep.
story is you see a guy with that kind of footwork, you don't try to fight him on the street.
Why does nobody ever go in the grass? As soon as I see some people fighting on the street or in a freaking building or anything like that, I'm like, you guys know how hard that is? And you might die just by hitting the ground.
Right, that is the dangerous part. As we see, you can get knocked out with a punch, and if you fall on a reasonably soft surface, you're pretty much going to be okay. You fall on the concrete. Yeah, anyone's guess. So hopefully Goliath learned his lesson there.
Yes,
somehow I doubt it. Yeah.
Isaiah Moore says, I've seen this many a time. Gaethje style, he says. The old slip and rip. And man, what an excellent KO. They made the list. The 2 that weren't in the ring or the octagon.
They can be on the undercard of the next Logan Paul show.
Exactly. Coming to you on YouTube for $10. The next one's gonna happen in the States. That's the word on the street.
Oh, I didn't even know there was word on the street. Thanks for keeping me updated, Dan.
Boom, there it is. And that's gonna do it for the best of all the MMA fights for the week. Thank you so
great
much.
Week, man. It's fun.
Yes, make sure you follow at FightFan_DC for all of the best clips and highlights and recaps that you can catch on MMA-today.com. I've got the links and all the relevant ones that we saw today in the description below. Thanks all of you sickos for coming and hanging out.
Yeah, thanks chat boxers.
Yes, until next time, back to you sickos. We're out of here.